Hello, everybody. Welcome. So glad you're here. This is Father Shawn's Paranormal Ministry. I'm Annette Munich, normally the co-host, but Father Shawn had to take a medical day today. Um, Father Shawn is a priest with the Old Catholic Church and author of God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry, Volumes 1 and 2, plus our new book together and with contributors called Help Me, I'm Haunted. All are available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Signed copies from Father Shawn are available on his website, and his website is ghostbegone.biz. I'm the owner of Stellium Books and a lifelong paranormal experiencer and author. Today we have a very exciting show. I think it's my first time meeting our guest today. He is an author of what looks like to me very many interesting books, including the one we're going to talk about today, which is The Smurl Haunting, When Ed and Lorraine Came to Town. And that book was the basis for the latest Conjuring movie, Conjuring 4 Last Rites. I would like to quickly mention his other books before we get involved, because as you know, this is the quickest hour of the week. It goes by so fast. Our author today is Maxim Furek, and his other books include Paranormal Apocalypse, Is This How It Ends? The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, Co-Region Hoodoo, Flying Saucer Esoteric, Shepton, The Myth, Miracle, and Music, The Death Proclamation of Generation X, The Jordan Brothers, a musical biography of rock's fortunate sons, and Somebody Else's Dream, Dakota, the Boys, and Timothy. And with all of that being said, please give a nice warm welcome to our guest today, author Maxim Furek.
How you doing, Annette?
How are you?
Doing good. Yeah, thanks so much. I'm sorry that Father Shawn can't be here, but hopefully another time. But yeah, thanks for this opportunity. I really loved your intro. I mean, the bumper music and everything. That is really, really well done. I mean,
Thank you.
That needs to be turned into a motion picture.
Yeah, it really is nice. The
Yeah.
lady that made it did a fabulous job with that, and very happy to have you here. Like I was saying, this is my first time with you. So very, very exciting.
Yeah.
And I'd love to really get into it and talk about everything connected to the book, to the movie, other books, whatever you might like to bring up and talk about. Because I just think that you're a fascinating guest. I think that your list of books that you've written is especially fascinating as well. You could be like our guest until May or June.
Okay.
If you have a good time today, I really hope you will agree to come back one day when Father Shawn is here. And he wanted me to extend, his apologies that he wasn't able to make it, and he felt quite bad about it. And he also hopes that you'll come back, reschedule, and be with us another time.
Okay. Now you're assuming, Annette, that this is going to go well, right? And
of course, we have a good time here. You know what? We talk about a lot of things that are very serious, but we'll joke around and keep it a little lighthearted a bit too, so it's not so intense, because some of these topics can be very, very intense. Hi, Heidi. Heidi's wonderful. Heidi's saying hello to you.
Yeah, she's from Boulder, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's exactly where I got my start as a journalist.
Oh, wow.
One of the things I did was I went to the Stanley Hotel.
Oh,
where Stephen
yes.
King wrote The Shining, and he called it The Overlook. But I was there, and I did got that published. And the one guy that was in charge, he claimed that Cora Stanley, she was the blind wife of Mr. Stanley, the inventor of the Stanley steamer, and he built that resort. But
oh,
she
really?
was blind, yeah, and she was blind, and he claimed that her ghost, you could hear her coming down the stairs with her cane. So the ghost of Cora Stanley haunts the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, which is just outside of Boulder. And Boulder is just such a sweet, sweet city, man. I love it. And again, that's where I got my start as an author, as a journalist.
The Shining is one of my favorite scary movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they do have events out there at the Stanley. Stanley is correct, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's in Estes Park. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, if for anybody who's a fan of Stephen King's The Shining, to read Burnt Offerings. And I think that was Robert, I want to say Mancuso, but talk about a house being haunted and a house gradually taking possession of the inhabitants. I mean, it's spooky. It's good. I've read that numerous times. It's called Burnt Offerings. And Stephen King admits that he got inspired to do The Shining because of Burnt Offerings.
Oh, so it's an older book for sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Nice. I just wrote that down.
Yeah.
Love that. I'm a book girl for sure.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah.
So I want to read some of your books because they look fascinating, and I love that there's some variety in there. It's not all on the same theme, all on the same kind of idea. And the Smurl Haunting, that occurred in Pennsylvania. Are you originally from Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I'm a snowbird. My wife and I spend summers in Pennsylvania, which is bucolic, which is the creme de la creme. And then we come down to Florida, and we spend winters here. But it's wonderful for me because I go down to Florida and I start crafting a book. And right now I'm working on The Scream of the Haunted House. And it's all about haunted houses and demonology and all that. And I go back to Pennsylvania and I will fine tune it and get it right, and then turn it over to my publisher, who, as a matter of fact, I just spoke with the publisher today about the book, and he goes, yeah, you're in. I mean, they like my writing. And so, so we're going to go with this. But I told him to hold off on the contract because that's too much pressure, So
and
anyway.
You said I'm sorry, The Scream of the Haunted House.
The Scream of the Haunted House. Yeah, that's the tentative title of my next book. And when you turn it over on the back, it'll say, The House Always Wins.
The house always wins.
The house always wins.
That's creepy.
Yeah. I know.
That is creepy. Yeah.
Well, but there's a whole bunch of us. I mean, people are either looking for Bigfoot and cryptids, they're looking for flying saucers, they're into demonology, and there's a lot of ghost hunters that go into abandoned prisons and mental institutions and buildings and industrial sites looking for what? I mean, looking for ghosts, spirits, demons. Buyer beware. You don't know what you're going to, I believe, not everybody believes this, but I believe that there may be some evil forces there, some confused forces, malevolent forces. I mean, just be careful. And a lot of the young kids that are doing the ghost huntings, I just think they do it spontaneously, and they don't have a firm ground. I mean, being maybe with, going with faith and having a crucifix or water or whatever. And I think that's what we need. And this is demonic. This is spiritual warfare. That's what it is. When you find the demon.
I experienced a lot of that. I used to have my own show, and I got a lot of email from younger people that got themselves in trouble, but it could be older people too. They're doing it just for the kick of it or something. Maybe something will happen. And they're just, wrong approach, wrong attitude.
Right.
And they're really not ready for something to actually happen.
Right. In early 2025, I was invited out to the Butler, Pennsylvania Paranormal Conference. And on the same bill were the Psychic Vincent sisters. And that's Suzanne and Jean. But when they did their presentation, this guy was sitting in the front row. And here he was a ghost hunter. He didn't belong to a group, but he went out there, individually. And he had pictures on his cell phone of these scratches, these scars on his chest. He had been ripped up.
Wow.
His eyeball was hanging. He claimed that he was attacked by some unknown deity, not deity, but a demon. And the sisters thought it was some sort of an attachment and said the only thing that can cleanse you is just a whole lot of holy water and prayer. And so that was that. But I mean, I saw those pictures. I went up there and I met the guy, but it was pretty horrific. So, you know, say what you will. I think I think for some people, they could become consumed with maybe the spirits, whatever that is. I mean, it gets into their head and they can't get rid of it. So I think there's danger out there, and there's many people that agree with me.
Right.
When you go ghost hunting.
Right. And I also think from the perspective of the location and whatever energies might be there, that sometimes we don't understand how offensive we could appear to spirits from long ago that lived in a different kind of time, a different kind of way, and how they might view us.
Right. They may view us as intrusive.
Right.
You know, they may view us as being someplace that we shouldn't be. And so, if there's any kind of communication, they may find ways to tell us that.
Right.
And that's the problem. But the Smurl haunting was sort of like that, but there was a progression. And you would ask me about where I'm from, northeastern Pennsylvania, and West Pittston, Pennsylvania is right in my backyard. So when the Smurl haunting was happening back in the 80s, I was up there. I was taking pictures. I was talking to the neighbors. I never talked to the Smurls because they were under attack. They were under attack by the paparazzi, by a public that didn't believe them. They thought they were just doing this for monetary gain, by demonic forces, by a public that thought that they were lying, just to make making this up for whatever reason. So I went up there and I saw that, and then the interesting thing that happened was Bob Curran was a reporter that wrote a book about the Smurl haunting called The Haunted. The co-writers were Ed and Lorraine Warren and Jack and Janet Smurl. And I saw that Ed and Lorraine Warren were going to be in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, a nice little resort there, relatively close to me. I mean, this was falling into my lap.
Right. So around, if you don't mind me interrupting, around what year would you say that was?
In the year of the Lord, 1988.
Okay.
That's when the book came out. And that's when Ed and Lorraine Warren began a 15-city tour to promote The Haunted. So I got permission to go there. I hung out with Ed and Lorraine. It was like for July in 1988 outside of the Victorian Theater. It was hot and steamy, and I'm taking pictures and talking to them. It was so cool. I mean, we're talking about demonologists and demonology and the might of the Lord and the power of the devil and just all this stuff, And I stayed in touch with Ed and Lorraine Warren. I considered them my friends and my mentors, and I stayed in touch with them until they died. I would call them up, and Lorraine was a lover of animals. She had a pet chicken named Einstein that was in the background. So I would call to talk to Ed, and you could hear Einstein, crowing. But Ed was really, really nice, just a nice guy. I mean, unpretentious. I mean, they were legendary. They were successful, and they were also I love them a lot. I still do. A lot of people don't. They don't like them. They thought that they were con artists and everything else. And they were castigated because they made money. And God forbid in a capitalistic society like the United States that you become successful and make money. I mean, boy, what a sin, right? So they were blamed for being successful. But part of that was Ed and Lorraine were the ambassadors. They were the pioneers of demonology. Right. They were sort of like to demonology what Sybil Leek was to witchcraft. She brought it into the mainstream. She was the crier to tell everybody about that. But Ed and Lorraine Warren were making something like $5,000 a seminar for these programs they did at universities, and they did close to like maybe over 700 of these. So they were making good money. They were on all the talk shows, and they were getting very popular. But some of the criticism was that they were making money, and that's what I think we all want to do, but, again, you start climbing that ladder and there's people that want to bring you down.
Well, that's the world we live in anymore. If you were giving out daffodils and dollar bills on a silver platter, somebody would complain about it.
Yeah.
Also, if you're doing speaking engagements and you are given seminars or whatever, absolutely, it's appropriate to sell a ticket to that.
Yeah.
You can be a servant of God, and yet you still have to put gas in your tank and stuff like that. So I always thought that they were very upstanding people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that their approach was very thoughtful on a lot of things. And so I don't know. Yeah. Well, I just see that a lot in the world. Like there's always somebody ready to criticize. That if that holds you back, you'll never get anywhere.
Yeah.
I think they've done a lot of good.
Yeah. Listen, I'm an old hippie. I went to Woodstock in August of '69. I have pictures to prove it. But back in the day, a lot of us were elitists, and we didn't like these rock bands that had like a top 10 hit. We always thought that was a sellout. We liked the ones that were the underground, the ones that were infrequently played, or played by the underground radio station. So that was part of it too. We also found a way to go and criticize success. And in hindsight, that was really pretty foolish. What didn't make sense at all.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people and some of the guests that we've had recently talk about they think that the veil is actually getting thinner, that there's more paranormal activity of all kinds. This includes your UFO, UAP, Bigfoot, all different kinds of reports and sightings. And do you think that may be true? Would you think that it's growing, or is it hard to tell? Sometimes I think maybe people are just more willing to talk about it.
I think that's part of it. Remember way back when, the days before Christ, you had these people that said that the earth revolved around the sun. And that was in conflict with what the church was saying. The church was saying because we are made in the image of God, that everything circled around the earth. And so when Copernicus and Galileo and Bruno said no, that we go around the sun, these people were criticized, and to the point where, Copernicus had already died. He was older, so they weren't able to go after him. But they put Galileo on house arrest, and they burned Bruno to the stake for saying that the earth went around the sun. Now, that was way back when. So that fear of going against the man, the machine, the industrial complex is still with us. Even with people, there's whistleblower laws that allow you to come forward, like Luis Elizondo and maybe Bob Lazar and some of these people, allowing them to tell their story. But still, when you take a look at these government workers that are making very good money and are going to have very good pensions when they retire, they're reluctant to go and say, hey, I saw something. And even with, but then again, what did they say? Look at David Grush. We had the first UFO congressional hearings in July of 2023. David Grush said, I know where the bodies are and I know where the vehicles are. That was in 2023. So my question is this. Where are they? We've had all these years to find out where they are. He said he knows where they are. Luis Elizondo, I think it was November of 2024. There was another UFO congressional hearing, and he said that, yes, all they say is, I know where they are. The government knows something, and the government's not telling us. That's it. Nothing more than that. Those things. That's like, it's almost like we could make a song out of that. So that's not information, that's not disclosure, that's not being transparent, that's just talking the talk, not
Right.
walking the talk. So I'm angry, I'm really frustrated because whoever's putting this on, I mean, claiming that the government's going to be more transparent and the government's going to tell us what they do. No, they're not. First of all, they're not doing that. The other thing is the whole system works on a need to know basis. And just because you're a senator or a representative does not mean that you have a need to know what these secret black ops organizations are doing, and what they're doing with the money, with the billions of dollars that we're giving them. And so we don't have a need to know that, and I don't think they're going to tell us. And I don't even think that Donald Trump would be able to get to access that information because he does not have a need to know.
All of that is really interesting. It's like layers of an onion.
Exactly, yeah. And how far do we go? The
Right.
FBI and the CIA, and then what? What do we
Right.
know? You know. Yeah, no. I was at a conference a while ago, and the guy sitting next to me, I was presenting on Dr. Santee, the White Witch, and this guy next to me was from San Francisco. He worked for the government in remote viewing, and I wanted to pick his brain and find out what he did and what they do, and he wouldn't tell me. So sorry, I couldn't tell you, but it's my belief. We talked about Montauk in Long Island, and we always thought that the government had a special agency there that dealt in time travel and mind control and astral projection and all this remote viewing. And I think they do have such an entity, but it's not at Montauk. It's all over the place. And I think that all governments are looking at these psychological things like remote viewing as a possible military for a possible military application. So it's not for the good of the order, but I think that a lot of these countries, including the United States, are using this or experimenting with this to try to find it, to try to get the edge. That's what I
Oh,
think.
for sure. And then, you hear about places like CERN.
Yeah,
And I've heard a lot recently about things that might be in Antarctica under the ice.
and yeah,
And we're finding all of those big, like, long post tunnels under the pyramids. So things have become really interesting. I kind of think that the confusion on a lot of things is on purpose. They drag their feet on purpose.
well,
You're, they just, whoever they is, we don't even know who's the they
yeah,
behind the they
yeah. But,
that
but but
decides.
you're right. I mean, we are living in a time of chaos. I mean,
Mhm,
every day there's another something to kick you in the head, whether it's Venezuela or
mhm,
let's invade Greenland or let's bomb the cartels of Mexico. I mean, every single day, and not just politically, but I mean everything. I mean, crazy stuff. I mean, we need to walk with courage. We can't walk in fear. We have to walk alone or with trusted others. But you
mhm,
can't be a lemming and follow these people over the
mhm,
ledge. You cannot let your life be predicated by fear. Fill yourself with the grace of God and be strong and
mhm,
be courageous, but don't be a lemming. We have had so many examples of people being led through fear that joined, because of that fear, that paranoia, they joined cults like Jim Jones's cult.
oh,
And
yes.
and that, just as the Smurl Haunting is very personal to me because I lived it. I mean, this was the book that I was meant to write, and there's reasons for this I want to talk about. But even with Jim Jones and the Guyana massacre, that was December of 1978. I was out there in Wyoming. I was out there in a cabin, no radio, TV, newspapers, anything. I mean, we were shut off from civilization. And the first thing I found out when we came out into civilization, hey, did you hear about the ritualistic suicide of 900 people drinking Kool-Aid? And a Christian minister, did, I mean, amazing stuff. And I wrote about that in my book, The Paranormal Apocalypse. Is this how it ends? I talk about people being motivated by fear and
Well,
joining these cults because the cult leader says, I'll take care of you. You don't have to be afraid. I will take care of you. Just come over here. Don't even think about it. Just give me all of your belongings and everything. Just come on over here. And many a person did that, not just, with Jim Jones, but so many other cults and throughout history.
and
It's tragic.
one of the interesting one
Okay.
of the interesting things about that for younger people that weren't even around at that time, that's where that term comes from. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's where it comes from
yeah,
because that's what they did. They all drank the Kool-Aid and they died. So, but
yeah,
really important. And I'm glad you brought up, some of this is about thinking for yourself. Don't be afraid. Um, just kind of walk your best walk spiritually.
right.
And you have to trust in God and trust in your own. Here's a great topic: discernment.
Yeah, okay, okay.
And
And
discernment, yeah,
go ahead.
is very important in the paranormal and in life in general. To try to help you understand what you may be dealing with,
Hmm.
because fear is rampant, and that's on a smaller scale and on a larger scale.
Hmm.
And the Smurl Haunting, which I like the way you kind of circled around and brought it back to that. That was very good.
Yeah.
If we could talk about that for a few minutes and what that family went through. And I also want to bring up that something that's been talked about quite a bit lately is mirrors, haunted mirrors, cursed mirrors, mirrors as possible portals.
Right. Um, yeah, they used the mirror in Conjuring Last Rites.
Yeah.
And they also used Judy Warren as the protagonist and said that, the demon was after her. And none of that was true. The only thing that Conjuring Last Rites got correct was the frenzy there on Chase Street. I mean, it was a circus, it was a zoo. You had young kids, teenagers going up and down the road. They were throwing beer bottles at the Schmerl house. You had the paparazzi. You had Janet Schmerl getting hundreds of phone calls and requests from the paparazzi all around the world for an interview.
Wow.
She had to deal with that. I mean, it was really, really horrific. But the I tell people, if you want to be entertained, go see Conjuring Last Rites. But if you want the true story behind the Conjuring Last Rites from somebody who was there, read my book. And like I defy anybody to say that what I wrote there isn't a more, well, it is. It's a more accurate representation of what happened there. Um, I lived in that area, so I visited that. I met Ed and Lorraine Warren, and then last year, July the 11th, I went to Gettysburg to see Annabelle, the alleged demonic
Oh,
doll,
wow.
and I met Dan Rivera. Dan Rivera was the Annabelle's chief handler. He was
Yeah.
54 years old. He was a former Methodist that converted to Catholicism. And when you ever talk to these guys, they walk on water. I mean, they are so filled with the Spirit. They just talk about this. I mean, they sing and dance, and it's a wonderful, positive thing. But when I talked to Dan, we were talking about Christianity, and we were talking about the spiritual warfare and all that. We were talking about the Schmerls. Dan Rivera agreed to do a phone interview with me on Monday, July the 14th. He was going back to Connecticut, and he was going to help me with my Smurl Haunting book. Dan died the day before. He died on Sunday, July the 13th. Now, the coroner said that, well, he had a cardiac condition, and it was he died from cardiac issues, which is one theory. But other people, like Ed and Lorraine's grandson, Chris McKinnell, believes that it was demonic energies from Annabelle. The psychic Vincent sisters believe that it was the demonic energies from Annabelle over a long period of time that eventually wore down Dan Rivera and killed him. So they called Annabelle out. The thing to realize is this. I mean, why did Tony Spira, Ed and Lorraine's son-in-law, why did he take Annabelle on the road in 2025 on the Devils on the Road tour when Lorraine Warren specifically wanted Annabelle to stay at the Monroe Occult Museum or the Warren Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut? I'll tell you why. They took Annabelle to San Antonio, to the West Virginia Penitentiary, to New Orleans, where all hell broke loose, a whole bunch of crazy stuff happened, and then to Gettysburg. The Gettysburg paper, and this is what I'm trying to get to, we're able to go and come up with a number. Over those 3 days, July 11th, 12th, and 13th, there were 1,260 people that paid $40 each to see Annabelle. Now, my wife and I were one of them, and actually we paid more than the $80 because it was online and everything. But so something like $50,000 at Gettysburg, more or less. And then when you count and factor in San Antonio, New Orleans, and West Virginia, that's like $200,000, give or take. I don't hear any, I mean, it was all about the money. It wasn't about anything else, so, when they start, when Tony Spira and his group start blasting me for celebrating the death of Dan Rivera or for capitalizing on his death by making money, you got to take that mirror and point it towards yourself and take a look at the blood monies that you're making. I mean, they're disgusting what they did. They went against the mandate of Lorraine Warren, and I dislike those people from the New England Paranormal Society. They're just bogus, and they're still taking Annabelle and all the other relics around. If these relics are infused with demonic energies, keep them there. I'll say one other thing. When I saw Annabelle in Gettysburg, Annabelle was in this house, this 5-foot wooden, like a little altar. There was a glass window. You could see her through this glass window. It came from a deconsecrated church. The Lord's Prayer was affixed to the back. There were three crosses for the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. The box was infused with holy water and holy oil. And there was a sign, do not touch, beware. But according to all the literature, Father Bob was supposed to be there. Father Bob was supposed to be there keeping watch over Annabelle and to make sure that there were prayers and make sure that everybody was safe. When I was there on July the 11th, 2025, to see Annabelle, Father Bob was nowhere in sight. Father Bob was down in South America someplace, and he might have been with Chris McKenna, because Chris is down in Argentina. I'm not sure, but at any rate, Father Bob, who was in all the literature, all the disclaimers that say you're safe because Father Bob performs cleansing, a blessing, 3 times a day and all this, he wasn't there. So, a lot of the stuff that the New England Society for Psychic Research are saying is just not factual. I'd like, bring Tony Spira on here. I'd like to talk to Tony. We could have a little debate here.
That would be interesting because I also was very kind of hesitant at the idea of taking some of these things on tour across the country.
Yeah.
That this could very possibly, not definitely, be a bad idea, and an obvious money-making idea, and also to draw people to these conferences, and maybe a very dangerous thing to do. But then again, I'm a believer. There's people that just, again, when we said earlier in the show, there's people that, it'll be fun. Maybe something will happen. Woohoo. Right. They have no idea what they're dealing with or what it could do to their life if something happened.
Mm-hmm. And especially if you're vulnerable. And here's the thing. I believe that certain people are more vulnerable to, say, attachments or possession. People that are mentally ill, people that are drug addicted, young children, maybe people that have been traumatized, all of that.
Yeah.
A strong person, I think, who walks with the Lord, who is filled with God's grace and all that, God's power, God's awe, can probably fight this off. Can probably do something to fight it off. It's been said that Christians can't, and I don't believe this, but I've heard numerous places that Christians cannot be possessed by demonic entities, and I don't believe that. As a matter of fact, with the case of the Smurl family, I believe that the reason that of all the people in West Pittston, Pennsylvania, of all the families in West Pittston, why did the demon choose the Smurl family, to attack? And I believe it was because I think it was because they were devout Christians, they were devout Catholics, they were churchgoers, and I believe that if the devil can bring those people down, they score more points. It's just
Right.
more of a reward than somebody, say, like me. So
Right.
I think that because of their strong faith, they were walking targets, but also because of their strong faith, being churchgoers, they were able to go and survive this thing. And the Schmerl infestation, the Smurl haunting that the Conjuring Last Rites is about, it was your typical haunted house. And this is my the Scream of the Haunted House. My next book is just sort of like a continuation of the Smurl haunting, because as I learn and evolve more, there's more to the story. I mean, a lot more meat on the bone. So anyway, with the Smurls, it started out really, there was a flood in northeastern Pennsylvania in 1972. It was the Agnes flood. And Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania got wiped out pretty good. It just got flooded out. A lot of people moved away. Jack and Janet Smurl moved to West Pittston, got a nice duplex that they shared with Jack's parents. And weird things started to happen, like noises, horrible smells. A brand new television exploded. The chandelier fell down and almost hit their daughter. The rooms that were hooked up for furnace, for heating, would go stone cold, like 50 degrees, 30 degrees, all kinds of things. The thing that made the Smurl haunting more vicious and more violent was the fact that Jack Smurl was raped by a succubus, a female demon, and his wife, Janet, was assaulted by some unknown creature. That, I think, is one reason that points out that this was a lot more personal and violent. So I think that the violence that we saw at the Smurl haunting was more than, say, Amityville or the Hinsdale house or the Wells house, some of these other hauntings that I've investigated. So Smurl haunting is definitely the one that got my attention. With Conjuring Last Rites, they did have a little brief surreal scene where it looked like Jack was being raped or assaulted by a demon. Very surreal. There was another scene in the movie where the Warren girl, Judy Warren, saw this collie being levitated. And in the true story, the Schmerls had a German Shepherd called Simon. And Dawn Smurl, I believe she was 19 at the time, saw the dog levitate and was thrown across the room. And there are many theories about this. Either a demonic presence did that, or Dawn was hallucinating, or just maybe, and this is the one that I think we need to consider, and Stephen King had a career out of writing about psychokinetic energies, mainly young people, adolescents, and mainly women. And he talked about these in The Shining, in Carrie, in Firestarter. All of these, and one theory is, I talk about this in the Smurl haunting, is that Dawn had that psi energy, and she was able to unconsciously or consciously lift up that dog and fling it across, levitate it across the room. Uncontrolled energies from adolescence. So, it's a theory that's been around for a long time, and not saying that she did it intentionally, but maybe it was something that she wasn't able to control. So, again, we don't know exactly, but we know that that's the story that the collie, and that's in the book. It's in my book, but it's also in the book, the Haunted.
And you also talked a little bit about channeling. I'd love to ask you about that.
Well, what I said in the introduction of the book, yeah, something was channeled through me to write the book. Again, I think it was something that was meant for me. Like it fell in my lap. I mean, I was there when it happened. I met the Ed and Lorraine Warren. I met Dan Rivera 2 days before he died. All of that. I got caught up in this whole story. I felt that I was meant to write the story.
Right.
And I did that. It was in June. It took me like maybe a month and a half, 2 months. But again, if you're a writer, what you do is you write. You don't talk about waiting around for inspiration. You don't wait about getting motivated. You don't deal with writer's block. You write, because that's what I do. Like all, and I'm proud of it. But I was able to put this book together in something like a month and a half, 2 months. Again, something being channeled through me, these energies, and what a powerful gift. And God's given us talents. It's our job to multiply those talents. I mean, I've been given a gift, and I'm so grateful and so appreciative. And and what I want to do for the paranormal community is maybe help define what that is. Help it give it some sort of definition. Help give it some boundaries. It's like this tall and this wide and all that. So. All of that, I'm just hoping that that would be, if anything, that would be my contribution, to the genre. And you talked about the various books that I've written. I'm fascinated by all those topics, whether it's cryptids or flying saucers or demonology. I mean, all of this stuff is important to me. It speaks to me, and I mean, I'm very passionate about it, and I'm maybe like a bit of a spokesperson for I would hope for the paranormal. So one of many, but that's how I view myself.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that in the last couple of decades, things have really opened up and changed, because it was that if you had an experience, you didn't talk about it because people would think that you're crazy. But now part of it's the internet, part of it are the shows that came out, like Taps was one of the earliest shows that came out. And also, I think people having a phone and a video recorder right in their pocket. So there's a lot that gets captured now and can be shown to other people. So I really think it's changed to the degree that people that don't believe, they just don't want to believe.
Yeah. Well, you know what? In northeastern Pennsylvania, there's this building. It's called the Garrison Building, and I live in a small little mountain community called Mackinac, Indian name, and so there's this Garrison Building that was an old school, and now it's being maintained by the community, because there's monies for that. But anyway, these workers were there. They're on the first floor, and they saw this little boy on the second floor. Now, this building should have been shut down for years and years and years. So one of the local electricians came over, and he happened to have one of these meters that I guess it was able to go and capture heat. And he found a heat signature there in the middle of the hallway where they saw the little boy. Nobody should have been there. The signature was what you would expect from a little boy, not from a squirrel or a rat or anything. So again, this was a non-believer. This was a guy that has no investment in the paranormal, but he happened to be there. And he told me the story. I mean, he told me it once, and then I quizzed him again to ask him about this. So with some of these, the technology that ghost hunters have, to look for heat signatures, even tape recorders asking the spirit to go and say something. I mean, there's a whole lot of things out there that are being used, and some of them legitimate and maybe some of them not so legitimate. But again, we have fraud in every aspect of the paranormal, and that's one thing I think we have to beware of and be concerned of, because there are some of these idiots that are looking for their. Here's the thing: they're looking for their 15 seconds of fame or their 15
Right,
minutes of fame, but they're not willing to do the work. They're not willing to
right,
do their due diligence, so they'll just lay this hoax on you, this scam. You
right.
know, come on, that's
Mm.
just bogus. Don't do that.
That's what I think is hard too, because sometimes we have people that are looking for a recommendation, and all of these teams are so different. If you want someone that's actually going in there respectfully with the aim to help the residents, that's a lot different
Right.
from people that are just going in to try and get the great capture of video or picture. They don't care if they make it worse.
Yeah.
They don't care. They treat an abandoned building the same as they treat a family home.
Hmm.
They'll agitate on purpose and things like that. And that's exactly what you don't want.
Exactly. Well, bad things. It could be a bad consequence of that. I did want to say in the Smurl Haunting, when Ed and Lorraine came to town, I talk about the rite of exorcism, and I say that one of the first miracles that Jesus performed was an exorcism, and he taught his apostles, his disciples, how they could perform an exorcism, and they could do it in his name and in his spirit. And the examples of exorcisms throughout the Bible, there's so many of them throughout the Bible. I mean, they're almost like traditional. So I talk about the rite of exorcism. I talk about Father Amorth, who was the Vatican's chief exorcist, and there was a wonderful movie called The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe, and it might have been around, I'm guessing, 2018. But they go to Spain to go and look at this house that's infested or possessed. But it's pretty accurate. But Father Amorth did thousands and thousands of exorcisms. He claimed that the church, that when you're dealing with somebody who's allegedly possessed, you have to make sure that it's a demonic possession and not mental illness. You
Right.
have to weed out the people that are schizophrenic or have
Sure.
Tourette's syndrome or bipolar, whatever. Father Amorth said that only 2% of the people qualify as being possessed. And in my book, The Smurl Haunting, I have a chapter called The 2%. So I talk about that. And I also talk about the movie, and Michelle saw the movie. Yeah, I hope you liked it because it was pretty good. Um, and then I don't talk about the Smurl Haunting until the middle of the book, because I talk about all these other things, and then I go to the Smurl Haunting, and then I talk about Father Treebolt. He was a Franciscan priest, and he was the one who cleansed the Smurl Haunting, the Smurl house. He went there 4 times. He had to do 4 exorcisms before he got it right, which that is great. That's wonderful. But Father Treebolt also went to the house in Western Pennsylvania, in Western New York, the Hinsdale house, and tried to do the same thing. He was not able to cleanse the Hinsdale house, also known as the Dandy house. He said that sometimes a place is just so evil, you need to take your belongings, leave, don't tell anybody where you're going, and just leave, because some places are just a hole to hell. He was not able to go and cleanse the Hinsdale house because of whatever evil existed there. What a difference between the Smurl Haunting and the Hinsdale house. And Father Treebolt was involved in both of those. And that whole thing was just so interesting because the Schmurls requested that the church send over a priest to do a blessing, send over a priest to babysit, spend the night there, have the local exorcist doing a rite of exorcism. And as you know, every Catholic diocese has their own exorcist. Sometimes he's known, and other times he keeps it on the down low. But nothing was happening. They weren't able to cleanse the house because they kept on hearing all of the horrible sounds, the smells, the knocks, everything. Just, I mean, it was just horrendous. And they finally called Ed and Lorraine Warren. Janet Schmerl had seen them on TV, so she contacted Lorraine. They came down. They went there like maybe 4 times, and they couldn't do anything. So they contacted Father Robert McKenna. And McKenna was interesting because he was what's known as a rogue priest. He didn't go along with Pope John the 23rd's Vatican II, you know, when we tried to modernize the church. So he was a rogue priest, and he was going back with the good old days, and he would say the Mass in Latin and everything. McKenna did 3 exorcisms at the Smurl Haunting and couldn't get the job done. At that point, and this was like a little continuation of things, the way it happened, Bishop Timlin, the Archdiocese of Scranton, brought out the guns. He gave permission to bring in, you know, whoever to get the job done, and they reached out to Father Treble from New York State, who came down, and so that was how that worked out, and so that was a good one. But even with the Hinsdale House, they are allowing people to spend the night there for a fee, like maybe like, I don't know, $350, you know, for a group. You know, so I don't know. I mean, you know, I certainly wouldn't want to spend the night there.
No. I know a little bit about the Hinsdale House, and I make a joke about, but it isn't really funny. But they have a lot of places that have lock-ins, and you buy a ticket, and you're in there till 7 a.m.
Right.
And, you know, that was never my thing. It's like, oh no. How much does that PTSD cost? I just, no. Yeah. And, you know, people are like, maybe something will happen. Something will happen. I mean, I know that, and that's the thing with the paranormal too, is just because a team goes through and nothing happens doesn't mean that things don't sometimes happen. They don't perform on cue. But if you're in like a big place that was a penitentiary or something, it's almost assured that something is likely to happen, and you're putting yourself in harm's way. And I mean, I'm different from a lot of people that I think that we're all living in a spiritual warfare situation, and only some of us are aware of it. And things really need to be treated with a little bit more reverence and thoughtfulness.
And awareness.
Yeah. A lot of things are made worse that don't need to be made worse.
I think there's people like us that are true believers. We believe, you know, we walk with caution. We know that there could be demonic forces, that there are demonic forces out there. I think there's other people that say, no, this is just a way to keep us afraid and keep us under control. And it's something that religion has done for all of us, you know, keep us afraid. So, you know, with paranormal apocalypse, I take a look at that fear and you know, and what's around the corner. And so my story, I guess, you know, in 2025 I had the Smurl Haunting and Paranormal Apocalypse that came out around the same time.
Wow.
So I just had finished them up at the same time, and this is just like, you know, kind of crazy. I mean, kind of crazy energies, but you know, I mean, I'm fine, I'm grounded, I'm not, you know, not going berserk or anything, you know, but it's just like a really sort of wondrous time for me that, you know, to all these energies and just a lot of, you know, a lot of people saying that, hey, I read your book and I liked your book, which is the best thing that could happen to an author. And also when readers post a review on Amazon or Goodreads, it's the best thing that could happen to us. I mean, that's gold. I mean, that's really what we need. So if anybody's listening, if anybody's considering getting the Smurl Haunting or any other of my books, I mean, please consider posting a review on Amazon and or Goodreads.
Reviews mean a lot, and believe it or not, it's already time to ask you, to let everybody know where they can find you. It is the quickest hour of the week. I'm so glad you came on. It
Yeah.
was a really interesting conversation. Very nice person to speak with, very knowledgeable, a lot of great insights. And um, maybe you could say the names of your books again.
Yeah, well, the one we talked about today is the Smurl Haunting, when Ed and Lorraine came to town, and it's about demonology, but I use the Smurl Haunting from West Pittston, Pennsylvania, as the epicenter, and then I compare that with Amityville and Hinsdale, the Damned Wells House, a bunch of other ones. So we take a look at that, and I've been told that it's well researched and proofread, and I've been getting some good accolades about the book. The other one is the Paranormal Apocalypse. Is this how it ends? And we take a look at the end times, or what's called eschatology, and the eschatologists are concerned with what the end times will look like. And this is, we talk about the second coming of the Lord, and where the saved will go to heaven, and the unsaved will go into the pit, but also get a second chance. But we don't know what's around the corner. We don't know how the world's going to end, and and at some point it's gonna. I mean, it's just the fact. Just like you and I have a certain expiration date, we're only going to be around for so long, and the same thing for this planet Earth. I mean, so and even which is especially true because with global warming and pollution and everything else. I mean, it's horrible what's happening, and so. But to contact me, my website is www.maximfurek.com, and you can take a look at my 9 books. And if you'd like to contact me for a signed book, you could do that. There's a way to contact me. So yeah, that'd be great. So Annette, thank you so much for this opportunity, and tell Father Shawn that he missed a really good time, and I hope he's feeling better.
I will tell him, and I hope that you can come back and get a chance to be on with him. I know that he felt really bad that he missed the show, and it really was great. And I want to thank Michelle DeRoche for being with us behind the scenes and making sure that the show was managed and got off on time and took care of all of the controls.
Yeah.
And this is UPRN Talk Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans, 105.3 Gulf Coast. And our next show coming up is Spiritual Switchboard with Carrie Lynn Shellhorn. And I want to thank all of our chatters, all of our listeners. We love you. Thank you for tuning in and being with us. And we want to wish everybody a great evening and a great weekend. Thank you so much, Maxime. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Annette. This was great.